Episode 41. Guys, we're coming up to a year. It's getting closer and closer. Man, I'm so excited. Great guest tonight. Absolutely fantastic guest tonight. I have so many people. Literally, when I posted this up, I had someone say, "It's about time." You know you got a good guest when someone says, "It's about time." And you know what? If the conversation we had before the show has any bearings on what happens during the show, I am certain you guys are going to have a blast. I'm going to set this up real quick. This is so much fun. You got to make sure that it's all published and everything. You know what's going on. I have to do this almost every frickin' week. Do. And, that's not happening. All right, we're going to keep trying. Here we are. No, we're not. Yes. Okay. Edit audience. Now I'm going to be able to see you guys. Please come on in. Let me know what's going on. There he is. See, I already have the people coming in. Get me your questions because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions. We're going to be talking about some really interesting stuff. I think it'll get really heated in a good way. Like both of us are, especially my guest, very opinionated and excited and passionate. And I think that's huge because even as we were talking beforehand, I said something and he was like, "You're dead wrong." And yeah, I think actually he was right. I probably was. It was a naivete that is still in me. I'm still new-ish. I'm still in my first 5 years. Still trying to get some of that green off. Katrina Rhodes, heated. Y'all look at no battling to the death. Definitely not. Brian Manell's here. Heck, Chuck may not be able to tune in very much. Work has destroyed me, but looking forward to the show. Dude, you know what happens, man? If you have any questions, pop in, let us know, and then you can always watch it on the replay. So you can do whichever you want. But boy, guys, look at those numbers coming up. Guys, if there's any questions tonight, I will get to as many as possible. We only have about an hour. For those of you out there who are looking into things, I am, Angela Odling, a former guest. What's up, girlfriend? I'm excited you guys are all here. I have a convention this weekend. If you are going to be in Dallas, hit up Fan Expo, or if you want to be, go there, hit up Fan Expo, come to booth A8, and I will take good care of you. Tell them that I sent you. Tell me that I sent you. Basically say, I saw you on a show or whatever. I'll throw some swag your way. I'll make it, even if you don't buy anything, I'll throw something your way. We'll have a good time. Anyways, I think we've done enough of that. Jason Doobie. Thank you, buddy. Thank you so much. I've got Russell Nohelty in the house tonight. Great guest. I was just on his show last weekend, so now it was time to do the turnaround on his amazing WannaCon. So we're going to make this happen. Why don't we start this mother out right?
Canadian bacon is actually really good, and it's nothing like normal bacon, and it's better than ham, which you guys seem to call Canadian bacon. I'm very good at writing. I write very well. Yeah, it's Shop Talk.
Do some of your audience members like the word fuck? Cool. Then I'm going to keep saying fuck. Because I care.
How you doing, buddy?
That's a great intro. That's a great intro. I've not been held speechless by an intro before, but I just started laughing in the middle and I can't stop now.
Oh, that's great. That's exactly.
Some of your audience likes when I say fuck. I'll keep saying fuck. Then what a great marketing. What a great marketing lesson there.
Well, I mean, if anybody gets it, I mean, a guy who wrote Katrina hates dead shit would totally understand.
Yeah, you know what's really interesting though? I don't curse very much anymore. In fact, when I go on shows, often I'm like, look, I have to curse because 2 of my books literally have curse words in them. So I'll try otherwise to not do it, but I can't avoid saying it if we talk about these 2 books.
Right. See, and this is where the marketing bites you. Because then someone like Angela, virgin ears, she's got to go. So, at least I know that I'm paring down to my audience.
Yeah, Angela talks a good game. She's got a dirty mouth like the rest of them. As bad. I've done 2 shows with her, and like I know for sure like just how like sassy her mouth is.
She loves a good F word, does she?
She doesn't say it so much, but she likes hearing them, I think, more than she likes saying them. That's a little Angela Odling. Insider tip.
I would not have known that. And you know what's great about her is she has this like innocent veneer to her, but you know that's like that just is kind of a sheen almost. You know that there's something else under there.
Well, I mean, she admittedly says that. Like,
yes.
She admittedly says that. So.
Oh yeah, she doesn't hide it. It's just you see the name, you hear how she talks, and you're like, oh, she's cute as fuck, and then you're like, oh, she's cute as fuck.
Yeah. That's good. But she's one of like the best collaborators I've ever had. So I love Angela's work so much. I always try and have like one anthology project piece going with her at every one time. I've tried to have one piece going with her, with Nick Torres, and with Eric Lervold. Those 3 people I try and like keep in like a consistent rotation, because like I kind of always want a reason to bug them, and working with them is a good way to be like, Angela, I need to talk with you kind of about this book, but also, did you see this awesome anime?
I love
this picture about frogs. Like me and I share with her a lot of images about frogs. Do you guys just have a cool, or does she have a cool thing about frogs, or? I have developed a cool thing about frogs. There's this great Facebook group called Frog Spotting, which I love. And she introduced, and I found it, and she's like, yeah, of course. Like, it's a great group. Duh. And I was like, of course you know about it. So there's this new, I think it's like HBO or Disney Plus, Amphibilia, a new cartoon. And I was like, have you seen this? And she's like, duh. Do you know who you're talking to? And I was like, yeah, it's really good. She's like, I know.
Well, she gave you some love.
Yeah.
She loves seeing us up here. Thank you, hon. We appreciate you. You know what's funny? I don't have a project that I felt would work well for her, but a good buddy, and I might, sorry, Eric, if I'm throwing this out there too early, but Eric Cockrell came to me and he's like, I need someone to do some covers for Blister. And I was like, Angela Odling. Like right away, you have to have Angela. She would be so much fun with your brand. And he was like, I was thinking of her. He's like, I'm so glad you said that. I'm like, oh, yeah, 100%. If I can't use her, I want someone else to, because her brand of fun is just, I want to see it, in somehow, even if it's on someone else's book.
Absolutely.
But we're here for you, not Angela. Angela, you had your little spotlight. Now it's Russell's turn. I am so glad you're here. I mean, to be completely honest, not to gush too much, you have been kind of a central voice in my comic world since I came on, and sort of you've always had this really, really amazing voice. And what I love about you is you don't give a fuck about failing. In fact, you seem to love to fail, because great, I'm going to learn something and then I will kick ass even better next time. And I have not seen someone who is so willing to take a bloody nose like you. Like, I mean that with all the love in the world. Like, I think fear holds us back too much, and I really respect how you do things.
Yeah, so I mean, some of my biggest successes should have been failures. I talk about our book Monsters and Other Scary Shit all the time. Like, everyone told me not to put that cover on the book. Like, the cover is this wraparound cover that's all like these monsters with glowing eyes. Every publisher I talk to, like, I wasn't trying to get it published by people, but like my friends, I have friends that are publishers and editors. They were all like, it's not gonna work. And it became our biggest hit, like the book that like broke us out. And then Pixie Dust, people said like it was a little too gory to be the art style that I did with Nick. And again, like, it was a huge hit. And so it's one of those things where I did stuff that is totally a bloody nose for me, but like firsthand data is the best thing you could ever get. Like, so, and when you get firsthand data in your own business, that is gold, because you get all of this information. Like, I talk about a lot of this stuff. I talk about like how to make comics and how to grow a business and all of these things, but like they're all theoretical to you. They only work for me. And so like you have to test all of this stuff and find the 5 or 6 things that work for you. I talk about mailing lists a lot. A lot of people like say it doesn't work for them. That's cool. Social media works for them, or TikTok works for them, or show, like whatever the thing is. There are these core things that you probably have to do to make it in comics, like conventions and Kickstarter. But then all of the other stuff is kind of like, David Pepos is going to do things a lot differently than Seb, and Seb Jones is going to do differently than like me and you, it's incumbent on us to try it, because maybe we'll like it, maybe we'll do great at it, but probably it's not going to work. And that's what I learned throughout this whole process of building my career. Is just like, it's probably not going to work. Like what these people say, like go do TikTok, go be on every social media platform, go do this, that, and the other thing. Like 90% of it's not going to work, or 95%. But like if you try it, you're going to keep adding things to your arsenal that do work for you and work in a way like, I thought that pins were going to work for us. I did not know how well they were going to work for us, especially after trying like stickers and prints and all of this stuff. Going hardcover. Everyone said like dropping every dollar you had into like doing hardcover is a terrible move, but like it literally saved our company, but people before said, if you go hardcover, people are broke at conventions. They're never going to buy your books. And I was like, well, my idea is basically like, I don't know, like my gut says otherwise, and like my gut is wrong often, but it's right enough that like I'm willing to try it. And the worst that will ever happen is I will go bankrupt. And like that is not great, but it's not the worst thing ever either, because you still have your books, you still have the experience, you still can go get a job working at Sprint or whatever, like doing sales stuff. Because that's the thing is, I've been a sales manager before. Like I know how to sell stuff. Like I take a massive pay cut to make comics and make books and like do this job. So like, I'm very confident that like I could go get a job and make as much or more money and work myself out of a hole. So that, I think that confidence is what allows me to fail in the manner that I do, but also trying things that if you only try things that people tell you to do, then you are going to fail overall, because the true success comes from the people who are trying something new, who are like, oh, everyone is doing it this way. What if I just tweaked this thing over here a little bit and that thing over there? And because everything is crowded right there in the middle, what everyone is doing, you kind of have to be an edge case outlier to make anything stick. And if you want to make a career that has, well, if I wanted to make a career that has meaning for me, then I had to do it the way that I cared about. And I knew that it would mean like making less money, because like I don't make booby books, like I don't make sex books, like I don't make books that like look like Marvel or DC books. Like aside from Katrina Hates the Dead, like I don't think we've made one book that like looks like you could find on Marvel and DC, unless like except for like a Scotty Young book. But like they were the things that mattered to me. And so I was willing to say, I'm going to cut my cap down. Like I'm going to cut what I could potentially make down. And in order to make the things that matter to me, so that when I look back after 10, 20, 30 years, I'm going to be very proud of the things that I did, knowing that if I ever really wanted to like open it up, I could go and make like I know how to make a book that will make just a crap ton of money. Yeah. Like it's possible to do. Like I know the aesthetics. I choose to do it the way I do it. And I think being able to make that choice is very powerful. And one of the reasons why I'm able to like fail in the way that I do, because like it's an interesting idea to me more than it is like, not that it doesn't have to work. Like it's not like I have like, I can't afford to have a failure either, but I can afford to not have a book that sells $50,000 or $20,000 or even $10,000 sometimes, in order to do the things that I care about and cultivate an audience that will be open to the things that I make, because I make novels and I make comics and I draw comics and like I do apps and I do all of this stuff. And what I want is an audience who will be open to trying all of the weird things. And I'm very grateful because I don't think very many people have an audience like I have who are willing to try novels and comics and prose and poetry and books that I draw. And like all of this stuff is possible for me because of the way that I built over the years. And yes, my floor is way lower than most other successful creators, but like it's still higher than most people.
Right. Well, and so that idea of trying new things, following, or, you know, trying what you love, following your gut, doing what you think's right. I believe that actually takes us to your most recent project, Black Market Heroin, which I just got a chance to read most of you, dude. So you said something, and I think you've been, you know, we said at the beginning we were going to be a little open. You've been having a tough time with this one because despite, you know, it being successful in its own right, you actually, I have you quoted here saying, "I've been fighting the disappointment that Black Market Heroin will likely be my least successful comic book since Katrina Hates the Dead back in 2015. Upon reading it and looking at it, I actually disagree. And the reason why I'm saying that is I think you might be looking at it purely from the Kickstarter look. But when I
absolutely am. I absolutely am doing that.
When I look at this, I go, if you get a manga kid to open this book, it's fucking sold. Like this feels like exactly what those kids who walk by my booth all the time who are saying, I want a good manga. I want a good manga. I feel like this is exactly what they will pick up at your booth. And this is like just the perfect way to get something to them. It's got everything that they seem to love. You know, the demons, the fun, the black and white, the art style, like everything. Camry and you guys have put together something really cool that I think doesn't necessarily fit in as perfectly with the rest of your stable, but I think it opens you up to a whole new section of the convention goers.
You know, you make an interesting point, and I totally agree with you because, like, success in one thing is not success in all things. In fact, most of my friends who are really successful on the open market do not do that well on Kickstarter because the taste of Kickstarter is not the taste of the overall market. I would wonder if you brought something like Demon Slayer to Kickstarter, like not now, like now it would make a mint, but like if instead of releasing in Shonen Jump, whatever the manga that they released in originally, and building up an audience there, if they just released like on Kickstarter, like I don't think it would do as well. You know, for instance, books that are like Travis Gibbs' book, like broke down, like those kind of books do not tend to do as well on Kickstarter as sci-fi, fantasy, and horror. But if you look at the open market, overwhelmingly the market is led by romance and thriller. Now go and show me, aside from Spike Trotman, an incredibly successful series of of romance books. You know, you have some that come from Webtoon, like Check Please, I think is like a kind of romancy book. And there's Girls with Slingshots. And like there's some that are in there, but it's really small comparatively to like horror, sci-fi, fantasy. Like that's the money maker. Like if you want to make money on Kickstarter, I was talking to my friend Charlie, and I was like, and he's like, yeah, I know why I made money on Galarian. I made money on Galarian because like hot, blonde, elf, naked, slaughtering people. Like that is the formula. Like that's the formula to like make $1 million on Kickstarter. You know, like that's the sweet spot. Meanwhile, those books will get killed in the open market. So you have to really, and the same thing with conventions. You know, I was just doing earlier this day a talk about conventions for Author Learning Center, and it's like the traditional wisdom on Amazon is if a urban fantasy cover has like a girl standing forward, like with fire and like an academy behind her, like every book should look like that. Everyone should look exactly like that because people want to know what they're getting into. Now, you bring that same logic to Kickstarter or especially conventions, you get killed. You get killed. You will get killed if all of your books look the same. At conventions, people are looking for unique, interesting, and unusual. And especially if you can make it so that it's exclusive to a show. And but again, you take that back and you get killed if you bring those books on the open market. That's why a lot of people that make comics, especially indie comics, like do terrible, and myself included, on the open market, because like our aesthetic that we're going for is Kickstarter, but that's not the aesthetic of the open market. Like Katrina, Ichabod, these are books that kill on Kickstarter, kill at conventions, and like die on the open market because the audience for horror and fantasy outside of Kickstarter and conventions is very small. So meanwhile, my friend Fabrice does a book that like did pretty okay on Kickstarter, if I remember correctly, but it's like a crime book. And I'm like, dude, it's gonna kill. It's gonna kill if it comes out in stores, because like that is what people are looking for. So you really do have to think. And I tried to at least be very honest in that post that like that is what I was looking at. Like I am incredibly proud of what we did with Black Market Heroine. It is exactly what I intended it to be, which is like a manga, high action, high energy, bombastic, fun ride that like, if you give it a chance, you will love it. Like I am confident that if you open that book and give it 5 pages, you'll love it more than you love Pixie Dust and you love Katrina Hates the Dead. As great as those books are, like I think this book is like, because I've had 10 extra years of writing, like is as a full concept better than those books. But that being said, like when people are scrolling through Kickstarter, like they're going to look at this book and that's not the aesthetic that they think of when they think of like a fantasy title. So you have to go out and you have to like comp it against different things and comp it against this and that. I have a friend that does theological books. We all have this friend, probably know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to name him though. And like his books, they do okay on Kickstarter. But I've been telling him for years, go into seminaries and like go sell this to churches. Like your market for religious books is not Kickstarter. There is like, it is at best agnostic, if not atheist, like generally across the board. Like but if you go and you can get this into like Christian bookstores or Jewish bookstores or even just spiritual bookstores, like it will kill. So yeah, you really need to understand like the overall market and say, as my friend Matt Hawkins says, he says like Kickstarter is one avenue. I'm not going to deny that avenue, but it is one avenue for our books. It's not the only avenue or even the most profitable avenue to take.
Yeah, I absolutely feel you there. Sarah came on. She said, how's beta reading going? I'm not sure if you were asking me. I didn't fully understand the question. I know that Russell has lots of beta readers. You have people who go over your...
I have editors. I actually got rid of our beta reading program because it didn't yield the results that I was expecting. So now I have an editor and my wife beta reads. Nice. So I have an editor, a proofreader, and then my wife beta reads, and that's kind of the 3 stages. And then I kind of rely on like the first people to read it to like tell me whether there are errors or not. So I used to have a big ARC team 2 or 3 years ago, like 500 people. And I ended up stopping that program and instead relying more on Kickstarter to get our like early readers and early people and early reactions.
And that seems to be working quite well for you.
Well, it is, but I do worry about the novel, specifically the Godsverse Chronicles novels, because like they were made off a series that was built on Kickstarter. So like, how are they going to do on the open market? Like, these are kind of weirder concepts. They're not like, each book is its own kind of self-contained thing. They're fantasy thrillers. There's not a lot of romance compared to like Obsidian Spindle Saga, which I think is a lot more viable on the open market just because I designed it that way. So it is like, it's been great. Like, I love the Kickstarter. Obviously, like I've raised so much money on Kickstarter, and like it's the reason I have a career. But as you expand beyond Kickstarter, it's hard to. You have to think about the avenues that you're going to be able to sell certain products and certain things, and the floor and the ceiling for them on the open market. But has been very successful for me, considering that like no one bought these books when I put them on the open market, and when I put them on Kickstarter, like we've raised $30,000 or something for these Godsverse novels since then.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. I love that you have tried and done all these things, and then recently I actually got nicely slapped on the wrist when I was on WannaCon this weekend, where you were saying, hey, is there any does anybody have any suggestions for new creators and whatnot? And I said, like, especially marketing wise. And I said, hey, what we're doing right here, being live and doing all these things. And you were like, yeah, that works. But actually, I've slowed, you had said you slowed down huge on that. And that's something that reminds me that, yeah, we need to try these things and test them out. But you also have to constantly check yourself, look at yourself and go, okay, that worked at one time. Is it still working? Am I still, is the return of interest, is it all working out here? Do I need to keep doing this? And I love that about you, where you're constantly analyzing the data and going, that's not working anymore.
Yeah, it's tough because a lot of things that work in 2018 don't work anymore. And like but so many people don't look at the data, or their return is small. So, for me, what ended up happening was I whenever I went to a convention, I would do panels. And what started happening was when we went virtual, I would do the same thing. I would be on all sorts of panels and everything. And what people started to expect me to be there all the time. Like the ability for me to be around wasn't valuable. And people wouldn't come and show up because they just see me like the next week or the next month, or they would tell me like, please stop. Like, I got it. You've done 12 podcasts this week. Like, just enough already. And what I realized was, like, when you're at a convention, like, everything is sort of a pocket, like you're over here, and like only the people who are at this convention know you're on panels. When I go to FanX, the people that like are not at FanX won't get to see that panel. When you are at like online, people see everything everywhere. So like there's no barrier to see them. And so I decided I had to be a little bit more precious with my time. And I now roll it into doing anything. I'll do anything as long as I'm launching a book. As long as a book is launched, I will be on shows. I will do interviews. I'll write guest reviews, anything. But when I'm not launching, I try really hard not to do those things, because I think that I need a break, but also I think the audience needs a break from me.
I think that's really, I like that. I think that's really smart. And I think I don't know if you actually said it, but it was kind of inferenced when you were saying it. You were like, but this is kind of first world problems, right? Like, I'm doing well enough that I can now look back and go, that doesn't work for me. So the lesson isn't necessarily, hey, people, do exactly what Russell is doing and stop this stuff. It's no, always look at your data. Always look at where you are and what you're doing, what is working and what is not. And I think that's really the lesson.
Yeah, and at different stages of your career, different things will work. I know, like, I've seen Wendy Shaner go through several stages of a career, several different career changes since I've known her. And so, and other people on this thread, like I'm looking at, like Katrina and there's like half a dozen other people on this list that I'm probably missing out. Angela as well. Like all these people that go that, and you know, you're at the beginning stage, you're at like, you get the growth stage, like people are starting to notice you stage, then like you break the stage and then you have to maintain. And like at each stage, different things are going to be valuable. And like, I think we spend a lot of time as when we're beginning, listening to people who are way further down a path than like they have any right to give you advice on. I mean, I tell people like, I have no right to tell you how to break in. Like I just can't, like, I don't know. Like maybe it is TikTok. I don't know. But I know how I can show you how to maintain, how to like sustain a career. I can show you like how to go from like breaking through to sustaining a career. But like, there's a part of this career that I'm friends with Marv Wolfman. I'm in a writer's group with him. And he's like, don't ask me how to break into comics. Like he broke in at 17, like by sending a letter to DC and them letting him, and like, that's how he was hired. Like, that's impossible. Like, you're not going to send a letter to an editor at DC and like, that just won't happen in 2021. It's not how it works. So, and I think that, that like I wrote the book, How to Build Your Creative Career, at a time when I could give that advice. So when people ask me how to break in, I say, go read my book, How to Build a Creative Career, or How to Become a Successful Author. Like that is filled of the advice that I would give you if I were breaking in right now. Some of it's going to be good advice. Some of it's advice that is not relevant anymore because like things change. But at every stage, there's like a pocket of things that work and a pocket of things that like don't work. This morning, I said, someone asked me a question on my other stream, like, how do you get invited to shows? And I was like, I'm a pretty popular creator. People tend to want me to be places. I don't know how to go about your first thing. And I was like, it took me like 5 minutes to go back and be like, okay, so the easiest way in is programming. If it's not, and I was like, this was 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Like the easiest way in to get a guest at the show is through programming, because programming, they always need people who are new. They always need program ideas. And if you could take a panel off of their thing, like they're going to be grateful generally. Yeah. So like message programming and ask them their policy for doing panels. Ask them what their theme is of the year, what they're short on, and then like find a niche that is really cool that like you can fill. It's like, I fill this niche, which is like business for comics, which is like, you know, Jamal and other people are in that niche now, but like this is a niche that did not exist 5 years ago. Like when I was starting doing it, like nobody was talking about this stuff. And like, not to say I'm a trailblazer, but like what I saw was, wow, there's tons of process panels and no business panels. So like they could probably use a business panel. Like, so I'm going to do that because I'm not going to get on a panel with like Matt Hawkins or Steve Lieber or anyone now to talk about the craft of making comics. Like there's no one needs me for that. But, you know, my friend Susan does a thing called Women on the Dark Side, which is like comic book and entertainment professionals talking about mental health, and they're women creators talking about mental health. And it's like, that's not so she's got like women, like a panel run by women, filled with women, only women, like talking about mental health. Like that is an awesome niche. I have a friend who does like cross stitch for creators. And like, that's another thing. Like how many people are doing cross stitch? Well, now like everyone, but like back then, like no one was doing like this stuff, you know, when she started doing it. And so I was like, go and figure out a way you could like take something off the programming director's thing and then like see if you can get a badge out of it. But the honest truth is like, I would pay for tables. And when you pay for table, the programming department preferences you because you've paid for a table and they know you have something to promote. So like buy a table, then go to programming, you become friends with programming, and then maybe in 3 years you'll get but like, I don't know if that's right. Like, I don't know because like, I haven't had to do it in so long. Like now I can just say, here is a list of 100 panels that I've done. And here is a CV of all of the places I've worked for. Do you want me to come to your show? I mean, and it's as simple as that. So, and there's a way to deal with that. Like there is a way to set up a site and do all this stuff and say, I have a bunch of experience. Like how do I make it so it's attractive to a convention organizer? And like, that's a much different conversation, one that I can give you, that I can have with you, that I really can't or shouldn't have the how do I get invited to my first show conversation.
Yeah, I totally feel you. And I love that Marv Wolfman gave you that advice, because I got very similar advice. I can't remember who it was right now. And it's killing me because I love the person. But same thing, I asked the same question. How do you break in? He was like, be in Brooklyn in 1983. Like, I can't tell you anymore. He said, the comic world is so different that I will tell you, if I did then, or if I did now what I did then, I wouldn't be anywhere. I'd be nobody. Like, you can't do the same thing. And I was like, oh, damn. Okay. And that's really telling. And actually, as much as that feels like really unhelpful, I actually found it helpful, because it was like, cool, don't look there. And that helps to know where not to look. What, so great. Where should
and who
I
not to pine for too? Like, you're not gonna, like, no longer do I ever have to pine for Marv Wolfman's career, because like, never gonna have it. Like, I'm never gonna have Matt Hawkins' career. Like, Matt Hawkins was like one of the original employees of Extreme Studios. I will never have that career. I just can't. Like, I will never be at like one of the most influential companies at its founding.
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, both of that absolutely so true. I do see several questions that people have asked.
I haven't seen any. Where did you sneak one? Oh, yeah. Sorry. Here's one. Are you doing conventions now with vaccine and COVID? Any panels?
I'm going to Salt Lake City Comic-Con. I'm going to do 3 panels there. After that, I am only doing shows that have a vaccine mandate. I will be doing panels at those shows, but I don't intend to take on any shows in the future that don't have a vaccine mandate until such time as it is not important to have a vaccine mandate. I tend to do panels on every show that I possibly can, because like, it's a great way to add to your CV and get authority. Like, every time that you get put on a panel at whatever Fan Expo or whatever, like, it is that show saying, I believe this person is authority on a subject. And like, there's no better stamp of approval than the show that these people are attending saying you are a cool human.
Yeah, that is really huge. That's why so often when people say, when you do a panel, bring a couple of your books up there to show off. Make sure they know where to find you afterwards.
No. This better advice is to bring copies of your book to sell, and say, if you do not want to come back to my table, I will be standing outside for the next 5 minutes with copies of my book that you can buy. Because most people will not come back to your table.
That's even better. Thank you. I had not considered that. That's really smart.
Some people will, but like, you can double your, like, you almost get 2 cuts at the apple that way.
Yeah.
I
see worth the 5 minutes, right?
Yeah. Well, especially if you have a panel late in the day. So like, for tomorrow, on Thursday, I have 2 late panels. So I'm really not going to have, like, people aren't going to come back to my panel, to my table. And the next day they might even be there. So like, I want to, especially at a show where like it's at the end of the day, say, like, don't bring like all of your books, just like bring your banger, whatever is the most popular for that panel. So I'm doing a Shadow and Bone panel, I think, on Thursday. And like, I'll bring like Ichabod or Katrina or like Pixie Dust or Black Market Harris. I'll bring whatever the book. I haven't decided yet. But like, I'll bring 1 or 2 books that are the most relevant and say, I've got a couple extra copies. If you're just going to go, you don't want to, but you're interested, like, I'll give them to you for $20 instead of $30. And like, I give a discount to say, give me $20 and I'll give them to you right now. Or I'll do 2 for $40 or like whatever the thing is like that I have.
That's really cool.
But I'll say I only have 2 copies. Like, I'm only doing this. Like, I'm not going to sell. I want it to be convenient for you, so you don't have to find me on the floor.
I like that.
I see one from Brian too.
Yeah. Katrina was nice enough to put it up. So unique stories tend to sell on Kickstarter and conventions. Are there any kinds of stories you think don't sell well for these, or maybe anywhere else in general?
Yeah, every story has like a market for it, and that market might be small or that market might be huge. So the books that generally tend not to sell at shows as well, and I'm sure Travis will like ring me up for this, is like crime, mystery, thriller, and romance. They tend not to sell very well at shows, but they sell great on the open market. Like when I say open market, I mean Amazon and like bookstores and libraries, because like that is the kind of content that people want. The overall market, romance is number one by such a large margin that it could literally consume all other books inside of it and still have space. That's how big the romance market is. But we think about comics, like no one ever talks about romance. Very few people do romance books in the indie scene. Mostly because they don't really work very well on Kickstarter or at conventions. But like in the world, romance is easily number one. Thriller and crime and mystery are big enough to consume all of the other ones, just like romance can consume. And very small, smaller than all the others, are sci-fi and then fantasy and then horror. And then like memoir and some of the other things, lit fiction. So there are books that are award bait, and those are the ones that are usually not very good sellers. So like a lot of the Eisner Award ones are good sellers, but some are not. But like just like with movies, they make their prestige movies for award season, and they generally lose money on them. Like a lot of these people are doing it for awards. So those are the things that generally don't sell well at conventions. Also, nothing sells well if you don't sell it. Nothing. Yeah. I have a book called Cthulhu is Hard to Spell. It sells great, but I still got to sell it. Sometimes people will come and just buy it. So, but I have sold my book, Spaceship Broken Needs Repairs, which is really, it's about a boy who meets a homeless alien, has to rebuild her ship and get off the planet. It is a stone cold bummer. It's about like abuse and it's been my bestseller some shows. Like it just depends. Wherever I put my effort tends to be where I get the most sales. But like I do get more on comics that are like Katrina and Ichabod and the God's Verse specifically. But yeah, romance and crime. It's the inverse. It's generally the inverse of whatever the top 5 is on Amazon is what sells at shows. So horror sells great, then fantasy, then sci-fi, and then crime, thriller, and then romance generally at shows. So, but yeah.
John Westhoff says, stand in the bathroom and sell books. No, guys, don't do that. Be the guy who sells John Westhoff tables to stand in because I make a lot of money just selling a table for $100 at a convention, and he can be inside the bathroom. So yeah, I mean, I guess like that would be the question then is if I were to come to you now and say, hey, I want to start right now, would you even have great advice? Like, do you feel like, and this isn't to kind of fuck with your book or anything, but do you feel like the book is still relevant to someone who is still starting now and wanting to get out there?
My nonfiction books?
Sorry. I can't remember the name of it, but How to Sell Your Soul.
Yeah, it's called How to Build Your Creative Career. Yes, I do think it's relevant now because I literally wrote it while I was building my career. So like It is a book that I can give somebody, but I don't know that person. Like I don't remember Russell Nohelty pre-2017. Like I couldn't tell you anything about that dude. Like it's a whole human being ago, and probably 2 whole human beings ago. Because like I probably couldn't tell you much about Russell Nohelty before the pandemic as well. So, because like there's been a whole nother Russell that came out after there. So like you're talking about like 2 Russells ago. And so how I know is I reference the things, like I will go back and I will read things in the book and be like, oh yeah, like that is good advice, or like that's not good advice. Yeah. And the same thing with how to become a successful author. Like there are things that I know that like are relevant and might be irrelevant now, but like what I tried to do with both books is build the bones that will be evergreen. So like I don't talk that much. I don't talk about like any social media platform. I talk about social media in general and how to stand out on it, which I think is still relevant regardless of the platform. And considering that like every time a new platform launches, there's like an expert, and that expert advice is literally the same every single time. Like I can say that like my chapter on how to boost social media engagement is probably still relevant today. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so funny that you said that and I know you're not a huge fan, or I believe I remember you saying you're not a huge fan. Gary Vaynerchuk had said that he said, if you're not going to TikTok next, then you're never going to make it. And I was like, yeah, I don't know that I believe it. And then I see some of these comic guys on TikTok, and I go, look, there is some relevancy. Like, for some people, this is working, but I'm actually seeing a lot more failures personally than successes on that. I don't know that it's as built as well for what we're doing as what one would hope. What are your thoughts?
I'd say the same thing for every social media platform. If it works for you, it's great. But like, you've got to speak the language of TikTok. And what I find a lot of times with the people that I talk to and know is like, they want to force their way onto whatever the platform is. And you really have to. And I'm like, I left Twitter for a couple weeks, like recently, and I had to like have a real like come to Russell realization of like what it meant, what I was going to do on Twitter, and like what I wasn't doing, what was broken. And I came back saying, I'm not going to force Facebook Russell onto Twitter. I'm going to be a different person. But then I also left Instagram, and I'm like, I'm not going back there because like it does not service me. I'm not a photo. I don't do things that are photo worthy. And when I'm doing things that are photo worthy, I'm not thinking about putting it on Instagram. Yeah. So I think that what ends up happening is a lot of people that go onto these platforms are like, I'm going to do live video. Like, I'm going to do my shop talk on TikTok. And I'm like, that ain't TikTok. That's not what it's for. Like, that's not what people like about it. So you've got to really know the platform and work for the platform. And the same is true about conventions or Kickstarter or whatever. You've got to really live in the language of that thing to succeed. And so often what I find, Kickstarters don't succeed or don't go as well as people think they are, or conventions don't go as well as you think they are. Like, they're trying to impose their will on an ecosystem instead of living in that ecosystem. And you can be a really great component of that ecosystem, a really unique component of that ecosystem, something that really shines and stands out. But you have to be a part of the ecosystem. You have to understand it. And if you go to it thinking, oh, I'm just going to be me, but on Twitter, like, or I'm going to be YouTube me on TikTok, you're going to fail, because every platform is built differently, and you will be strong on some and weak on others.
I love the way you say that, because that then brings me back to the whole idea of some books work on Kickstarter, some books work in the open market. And so it feels very much it's the same thing with the different social media platforms. Some people will do better on certain platforms. You really need to find your platform and dig into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And some books just don't have a very high just don't have a lot of people that care about that book. It could be the greatest book, but I have so many friends. Some of my absolute favorite books are books that I know no one will ever read. Yeah, because like they are outside of the mainstream. And unfortunately, there are edge cases that break through, but generally, like, the mainstream is going to be pushing forward in a way, and you've got to at least catch the edge of it. And there are ones that are so far out of the mainstream and so cool and so amazing, and I love them so much. But like, I absolutely know that like there is very little chance that they will ever have the mainstream success that they deserve. But that does not mean they are not great comics. That does not mean that people should not be proud of them. And that is why, at the end of the day, all you have are the books you've made. All you have are the things that you put out into the world. And like, I think for me, I want to know what the top is. Like, I want to know what I can expect from an anthology or from a comic book or from a novel. Like, I want to know what I can expect so that when that thing happens, I will be ready for it. And when something better happens, I'll be delighted for it. And when even worse happens, I won't be so crushed by it, because I'll already be expecting the most likely outcome, which might be which is usually going to be the outcome. Like I predicted literally before this campaign that black market heroin would hit 10 grand, and that's where it would cap at. And it's probably going to might hit 11 or 12, but like it's going to be right in the range of like what I said. And Ichabod, I said, is going to hit 20, and it hit like 22. It's right in that range. And so like I think that you really need to know what to expect, because that's going to be also how you push it. So like I am not pushing black market heroin nearly as hard as I would push Ichabod if it was at this place, because I know Ichabod has so much more in it. Whereas black market heroin, I am unclear if it has that much more in it, because the art is so much more off what the mainstream is. And the only reason that I push Ichabod in the way, because it is also a book that is outside the mainstream, the only reason that I push Ichabod as hard as I do is because it gets press, because I have spent 10 years pushing it.
Yeah.
And Cthulhu gets press because it's Cthulhu. So like those ones, I know the more breadth that I get, like the more people will be like, I remember Ichabod, I remember Cthulhu, but like the more breadth. But if I push black market heroin, people are just going to be like, okay, what is a black market heroin? What is a God's verse? Like, I don't know. Like, it's this weird thing that Russell does. And so I want everyone to read it, but I don't want to bash people over the head. And that's where like, it's a light touch that you have to give to these things. Like you can push them to a certain level, but like, I'm not sending nearly as much marketing material as there is for other stuff, because I don't want, I want people to be excited for it later. Like I want them to say, when I see them at a convention, oh, I saw that on Kickstarter and I missed it. Whereas Ichabod is like, no, you already had, you've had to the first 2 volumes. Like I'm trying to get you into the next volume. Like you don't need to know what Ichabod is about. You already know what Ichabod is about. What you need is for people for the breadth to get to you. And it's just a lot different way to like promote something. Like my friend David has this book, The OZ, which is like Hurt Locker meets Alice in Wonderland. Not Alice in Wonderland. Dorothy, Wizard of Oz. And I'm like, and the art is beautiful. It looks like a mainstream comic. Like it has the right hooks. And like, that is a book that I would push as hard as I could, because it is easily digestible in like one sentence. And people go, oh, I like Wizard of Oz. That's a cool take. And that's all they need, especially because David is a known commodity in bookstores and in the comic community. They go, oh, David, Wizard of Oz, war, cool, in. And but a lot of other books are like, they don't have that easy pitch, or even if they do, like, I think the pitch for black market heroin is pretty good. It's about a criminal who accidentally saves the Antichrist and has to keep her alive until morning so that a demonic cult can't use her blood to open a gateway to hell and start the apocalypse. But still, like, that's a lot of things. Yeah. Like, that's not Oz, David, war. Like, that, it's not Cthulhu anthology, all these creators.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that. It's not, we both work on Cthulhu Invades. It's like Cthulhu Invades Oz. Cthulhu, Dorothy, anthology, boom. Like, that's all you need to hear. And we need to get better at understanding that, like, the language that we speak with books. It's not that we shouldn't make books. Like, it's not that we shouldn't make the books that we absolutely want to, because, like, I believe that we should make the books that we want to. But I think we should also go in with clear hearts and clear eyes, so we know, okay, this is going to be a harder sell. Like, and sometimes, like, I make Cthulhu is hard to spell so that I can make all of the weird books, because someone goes, Cthulhu or Sleeping Beauty, and they're like, they just get there and it hooks them. And then I can say, oh, you liked that? Look at Ichabod. Look at this book. Look at that book.
Yeah.
Look at that thing. But like, I you know, especially if you're going to make weirder books, like sometimes it behooves you to be like, but the thing that really runs this area is Wizard of Oz, whatever the thing is, or like the thing that is the biggest Goliath in my space is Warcraft. I know you can't do like Warcraft stuff because it's like licensed, but like whatever the thing is. But when you're talking about marketing, it's different because like if you're like, oh, Warcraft is the thing that like is great for me. Like that's the one. That's the one that everyone knows. And like my thing is exactly like Warcraft. Like you can't make Warcraft fan art. Well, I mean, people do that, but like, you know, can't legally make a lot of Warcraft fan art or like make a Warcraft comic book or anything like that. But you can, instead of giving away your own books, give away Warcraft books. And instead of nobody joining your giveaway, you go, and now instead of no one joining your giveaway, you've got a lot of people joining. And then what you say is, hey, you like Warcraft? Look at this stuff. This is like Warcraft. And like, you like me. And whatever the thing is, like, you can use these ideas to like do other stuff. It's what I do with the viral giveaways we do all of the time. I'll be like, Alice in Wonderland. Like, yes. And then my goal is to say, here's the Alice in Wonderland prize pack. And like, here's why you should like me. And here's how this thread ties into my work. Or whatever the thing is, like all over the place. I'm like grabbing these little threads, even if you don't want to make these big like public domain books. But you have to understand this kind of dynamic of like popularity, because if you want to succeed, you've got to draft off things that have come before you and then tell you how you made that spin. And you've got, and when people are like, why can't I get press? I'm like, because your stuff is not newsworthy. It needs to be newsworthy. Like you can probably pitch that same book and be newsworthy. But like, if you want to, like, it's easier for me to get press, or David to get press, because like we're known commodities. Like David's book with Aftershock did something like over 10,000 units on the first issue. Like, yeah. And he was a comic book journalist. So like, yeah. Like when he emails Bleeding Cool or whatever, Comic Book Yeti or like whatever the big, they're going to cover him when he's got a number 1, but they are probably not going to cover him when he has a number 2, because a number 2 is not novel. It is not newsworthy. Of course, you're going to do a number 2. So, and he talks about it. I think I listened to him talk about it recently, where he's like, the people that covered number 1 don't cover number 2. Like they didn't cover number 2 because like it was not newsworthy. But he drafted off of the popularity of it, and it got like something like 12,000, like 12,000, like 1,200 or 1,100 or 1,000 backers. And then now I think his new one has like 800 or 900 backers. So like all of these ways to like talk about newsworthiness or talk about like whatever. It doesn't have to be like you have a book that's Hurt Locker meets Wizard of Oz, but like there has to be something more than just I have a Kickstarter launching. It's like have a Kickstarter launching. Like, okay, so did you go to your local paper? Because like your local paper will probably cover local boy or girl or they makes good on comics, on making a comic. My friend Roy, when he got his deal with Dark Horse, like Washington Post covered him because he's a Washington local creator. So like all of these things are possible, but you have to understand where you fit into the ecosystem. You have to understand what reviewers are going to enjoy your work, because that is how you're going to expand out and expand out and expand out and expand out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Sorry, there were some things brought up. Sam says, man, still wish they had tables in San Antonio. I'm sorry, but I did not know they were sold out. I'll at least get to meet Chuck. Yes, you will. What are you selling? All of it. Belial, Welcome to the Void, Essence House, Cthulhu Invades Oz, which we talked about, which you're like totally right about that book, by the way. I don't know if you got any comps of that or sold that at your table, but that book, it's just like, I'll go through the pitches for all my books and then I'll get that. And I was like, and that's Cthulhu Invades Oz. I don't have to say anything else. You either know it or you don't. And if you know it, you want it. Like it really is just that fucking easy.
Yeah. Same thing with Cthulhu is hard to spell. I'm just like, it's Cthulhu. but the gods and monsters of Lovecraft. And they're like, I want it. And they buy it.
Yeah. Yeah. It has that instant, if you like this, you will like, if you like that, you will love this. And yeah, you're right. There's that just direct thing where you almost don't really, it's half a sentence to explain it, which is wonderful. They can't all be like that, but it's nice to have that one thing where you're like, I know I don't have to work too hard to get.
But you need the one thing. So like this is the story about Ichabod. So like Ichabod was not my best-selling book until Cthulhu came on my table. The minute that Cthulhu came on my table, it directly looked and felt like Ichabod, and sales doubled when we put that book on my table. Because they doubled when we went from soft cover to hardcover, because the hardcover is just a better looking cover. Please don't fall. 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 You're gonna fall. I know it. I'm just gonna push you in. Like,
Naomi Comics says TikTok is for kids. Don't agree with that.
There's a billion monthly users, so. Like I heard 30% of you users are over 30. So like that's 300 million of them. But yeah, I mean, look, so like, and I designed it this way. Cthulhu leads to Ichabod. And like literally have Cthulhu on my table. When they get Cthulhu, they're like, oh, and look at this other book. It's Ichabod. It's like dark fantasy horror. And it's funny in the same way Cthulhu is hard to spell is funny. So like it literally doubled sales just having it on my table to the pace that it outpaced Katrina, which has always been our bestseller until Cthulhu got on our table. So like it literally raised up 2 other books.
Yeah. It's funny. John Westhoff, smart ass, but I love him. But he asks smart ass questions. But I think this could lead to a good one. He says, how many Russells are out there? Is that your next book, The Many Russells? My question would be, as an evolving creature in this ecosystem, do you kind of see what the next Russell's looking like? Can you kind of see where things are heading? Or is that just something that you more have to look back on after you've shed that skin?
Oh, that's a good question. I think that you can do that. Like it's a combination of both. So I'm 39. Just turned 39 last week. So like 40 is like creeping up, and like, whether it's just a number or not, like I feel the pressure building, like just like I did at 29, I felt the pressure building to 30, that like it had like there's something coming. I didn't feel it at 32 or 33 or 34, but when I turned like 37, I started feeling like, okay, like what is the next evolution? And some of that you have control over. You pick the projects that you work on, right? Like you pick the things, you pick how you're going to live and what you're willing to do. Some of it is out of your control, because sometimes a book will come and take off. Sometimes a book will like completely blow up in your face and you'll have to scramble for what the next thing is. So you have to kind of be nimble about what that is. But I do find myself kind of telling myself what I want to be when I turn 40, like what I want the next evolution to be. Like I want to not be writing like 5,000 words a day. Like I want to be doing a little bit more movies and a little bit more like animation and a little bit more like other stuff. But I feel like I'm still not on stable footing with some of these things. I want to I want to end some of the books. So like Gods vs. Chronicles ends in January. Cthulhu's Hard to Spell ends in March. Ichabod ends in September. So like they're all going to literally end before I turn 40. And then the next evolution of whatever that be will be allowed to take place. But I was having a conversation with a friend earlier, like I haven't had a good idea in like 2 years. Like I feel like I've been working on all of this stuff, and all of the stuff that you see is buildup of like universes that already exist. So like when I mean the good ideas happen inside the universe, right? Like, like I'm not saying like the issues are good, and like Black Market Heroin is like in the Godsverse. So like it is a very good idea, but like it is being built upon the like the bones of the Gods verse and like the bones of the other books and the bones of everything. So like it wasn't starting from scratch. I'm saying like I'm writing a new series now that is sort of a continuation that is brand new. But but that was a book I had like in 2016. I had the idea for it, or 2018. So all of these things are kind of like ending. I'm kind of pushing out my backlog, and I have one idea, and it's literally the only new thing that I've been excited about since like 2018 or 19 probably, because like I'm very excited about the Obsidian Spindle saga, but like I had that idea in 2018. So yeah, it's been a couple of years since I've been like, oh, that idea, like that's the one, like that's the next thing. So I'm partially kind of worried, and partially I think that at some point in my career I stopped thinking every idea was good. Yeah. And I think that's an evolution that like a lot of creators, it's hard to explain, but like when you reach a certain part in your career, you start saying, oh, yeah, that idea I don't want it. Like it doesn't serve me. Or like that idea would be better in this series. And you start saying that's not like its own idea, or like these 4 ideas are like one idea or something like that. But like you stop saying, oh, I had this great idea, I need to write it down. I could always kind of sense where someone is in their career if they're saying, oh, I got an idea this morning and like I'm starting a new book now, or like I'm starting a new thing, or I'm starting a new folder. And it's not that like some people are way more successful than me, and they're still doing that. It's just like I'm at a place in my career where I like breathe a lot more, and I say, no, that book is not happening. That book's never going to happen. Or most importantly, like that is not a Russell Nohelty book, and that is not something that Russell Nohelty that the brand of Russell Nohelty wants to pursue, or that I want to pursue. Like it's a great idea, and I hope I read it one day, but like I'm not doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I completely get that. I know that I've had certain fun thoughts where I was like, hey, what do you think about this? And they're like, yeah, you should do it. I'm like, no, it's not. I wouldn't do that as well. That's why I'm telling you, because if you like it, go play. Like I would love to see your take on this thought, but this isn't in my playground. I don't think I'd do it justice.
Yeah, about 3 years ago, I started saying, instead of being like, oh, that idea, I had this great idea, and like now it's a TV show. Now I'm like, awesome, like it's a TV show. Like I can watch it. Like I don't have to make it. Like it's made. Yeah. Like I can just cut that off of the thing. Like I don't have to make this thing anymore. And it's weird because I've written now 11 books in the Godsverse Chronicles and 3 graphic novels to come back to Black Market Heroine, and like something kind of happened when I finished that book series where I was like, in order to make something that is that long, you have to commit. I committed a decade of my life to it. I committed 4 years of my life to writing the Godsverse Chronicles. Like that's so much effort that now I look back at that effort and say like an idea, in order for an idea to be exciting to me that I'm not being paid to do, like I have to love it enough to spend 4 years on it, like the next 4 or 5 years. And having finished Cthulhu, which I started into the Monster Anthology series, really goes all the way back to Monsters and Other Scary Shit, because Cthulhu is just an evolution of that. So that's 2016. So what are we going to be, 2022? That's 6 years. Like Ichabod is ending next year. That's 12 years of my life. Like in order to really do justice to a series, like I'm starting to believe you have to like devote that much time to it. Yeah. Like it is you have to devote a decade to selling it. Like and if it's worth reading, people will still want to read it 10 years later. And in order to have something else that latches on, it took years for me to build up any equity in Ichabod Jones Monster Hunter. The Cthulhu stuff came a lot easier, obviously, and the monster stuff came a lot easier. But like, still, that brand, it like needs to be nurtured. It needs to be like, and I only have so much time and energy to nurture a brand, to like nurture more Ichabod or nurture the Godsverse Chronicles or something like that. And then to dump money into marketing and advertising and all of these things, it takes just so much effort. And that is what I realize now is just the absolute mammoth amount of effort that it takes to make this stuff. Not make it. That is a monumental effort in and of itself. And not even sell it, because that's a monumental, but like to maintain it over time. And as time goes on, you get more of them. And so now I'm like, okay, I've got Ichabod, I've got Cthulhu, I've got the Godsverse Chronicles, I've got Obsidian Spindle. Like, that is a lot to maintain over the course of like years. And that is a lot of plates to juggle. So I don't know what 40 will bring, but I'm trying to bring more, or the ability for something good to come out of it, to hit me by like kind of ending a couple of these things and trying to say, okay, like maybe there's an Ichabod card game. Maybe there's a monsters. Maybe there's a Godsverse Chronicles RPG. Maybe there's something that doesn't come from my effort writing that can still further the brand. So yeah, I don't know, but the next, I didn't even think this evolution would happen. Whoever thinks they're going to make a living as a creator, like really, like how many people can actually are living out the working as a full-time creator dream. And so I'm also trying to take some time and just like appreciate that, like very few people can ever do this thing like full time. And I've been doing it for 6 years, and hopefully at a high level and hopefully at a way that people like. But part of me is like worried that I'm like, oh my God, like how much longer can a pure person like persevere on pure just like charm and energy and like, so anyway, so I don't know what the next Russell is going to be. I'm trying to make space for it, I guess, is my short answer.
Yeah. No, I love that. I'm getting called out here. Chuck is hitting us with that hard-hitting dialogue. Yeah. Yeah. Look, when you got a guy like Russell who is spitting truth at you and fucking directing, don't get in the fucking way. All right? And maybe that's something, that we all need to learn is right now, my job is to give him a good opening to teach you motherfuckers. And then I shut up and I listen. And if there's some nuggets that I then want to take and turn that into something else, then that will be the next question, which will lead him to the next 20 minutes and whatnot. And I'm fine with that. I have no issue. I think if you feel like you have to control the dialogue, then that might be part of, that's a problem. And I'm not trying to call you guys out there, but I'm just saying we got a really good thing going. If I were to say anything else to him and add anything else, I'd be getting in the way of some really cool shit here. So, yeah. And now nothing's moving. So what do we got going on here? Chuck needs to up his charm game. Fuck you. Yeah, you can tell Chuck is just, see, all I can do is kind of read because Russell has so much great stuff going on. I'm like, you guys are talking shit and I'm loving it, but I'm not reacting right now. All I can do is react because it's way more important than your shit talking. What did we have here? Russell is one of the most hardworking independent writers out there. His stories are very well written, and I very much agree with
guys.
that.
I appreciate that. I really do.
I have a couple of your pieces here. In fact, I like to leave pixie dust around because I believe that my kids would absolutely fucking love it. And getting them to read anything is so difficult, but I feel like at some point they're just going to go, what the fuck is this thing? And they're going to read it and they're going to enjoy it. Because trying to get them to read my stuff is impossible.
Yeah.
That's my dad's shit. I don't want them to hear how I really feel about it, and they leave it alone, and that's fine. But I want them to read something. I want them to get excited about something. So that was a book where I saw that, and I was like, you know what? I know my kids, dark fantasy, that's something that our whole family is into. So I leave it out in the hopes that will show up. Can't handle the comments. Seriously, did Steph Wilson just say that? We'll see what happens on your show, homie. But yeah, it's so funny. Whenever I start these shows, I usually will say, what's your origin story in both comics and creation? But I think what's kind of cool is that we didn't need to go through your origin because we already saw the evolution. Like it was all right there. It got to come out. We didn't have to go to the very back and dig up old graves and whatnot. It all came out anyway. So I really enjoyed that about you a lot.
Yeah, man. I mean, I always hope that people are getting something out of the things that I ramble on about, because like I'll realize that it's been like, oh crap, it's been 10 minutes and I haven't came up for air. Maybe I should let the host say something now. But I do really appreciate what you said about Pixie Dust. I mean, the reason that the Godsverse as a whole exists is because like people have been so supportive of those two books, and like they wanted more. So the whole 11 book series, and of which Katrina just finished last Tuesday or Wednesday. I just sent into my final cover team to do the last ones, one of which is Black Market Heroine. Exists because people continue to love it and continue to care about it. And every time I run a campaign, I'm like, they've got to have enough now. But, I think Katrina said something in the comments when we were talking the other day about like that, what a great series it ended up being. But like, I never would have known like that we were making something special back then. I'm very honored that, and I use Katrina as my bulwark, like canary in the coal mine for this series, to be like, did I screw it up or is it still good? Like, you better be honest with me when like you finish proofing this thing, because like I need to know like honestly if I broke the universe. But I really do think that what started as a little silly couple of books. It started as Katrina Hates the Dead, and it started with Pixie Dust. And like, I love those books, and like, especially Pixie Dust, because I think Pixie Dust does something really cool with and Kevin said it on his show the other day about how like Octa decomposes throughout the whole like second half of the book, and like, and like her powers start fading. I think it's a really cool thing that Nick and I came up with, and Nick like really made it feel like by the end she was like really. Like it's just a really, really cool dynamic that I'd never seen in comics before. And I really love that about it. I love that it's square. But like to go from those two books to like the 4 novels to the 7 novels that we released this year to like 11 novels that are finally going to come out, and 3 graphic novels. I mean, like, you just don't think that. Like, I don't know. Yeah. Maybe people do have a better grasp on their career than I did. But like, I made Katrina and I made Ichabod, figuring that was it, and then I would publish other people's work. Like, I never in a million years thought like monsters would lead to Pixie Dust, lead to like people buying 5 books of mine a year, 10 books of mine a year. Like, just don't think about it. So I hope that like I get to keep doing it for a long time. And I'm very appreciative that people love this series, that they have seemed to fall for Obsidian Spindle, that like they're still buying Black Market Heroine. And you're right, like it's not going to be my best-selling book. In fact, it won't be available except on our app Beehive after we get done here, after we get done with this campaign, and I'll probably have enough to fulfill the Godsverse campaign in January. But then like I won't offer. I'm not going to offer it at shows. Like, it's going to be a thing that is like exclusive to our Beehive app.
Oh wow!
So if you want to have to same with most of our books actually are only going to be available on our Beehive app. So Worst Thing in the Universe, Void Calls Us Home, Invasion, Marked Ones, The Vessel, Sorry for Existing, Gumshoes, and In the Dark Place, Gherkin Boy, How Not to Invade Earth, my sketchbooks, Monsters and Other Scary Shit. Like, these are things that once they're out of print, like they're not going to exist on like anywhere but the app. It's not going to. Like, that's the only place you're going to get them. So it's crazy that like you have 35 books back there that like are kind of. I thought I had a career when I had like 10 of those books. So like I don't know what I have now, but it's quite cool that there's enough to like kind of make an app for.
Yeah. See, still talking shit there. I hear you guys. I only put him in solo mode so I could go make a go make me a hot pocket. Fuck you guys. Yeah, no. See, I don't know. I'll still make the argument. I still think that black market heroin would do so well at your table.
I think it. So you have to make a decision, right? So like, there's only so much space on your table, and like. I decided to do a short run of black market heroin. So like I'm not doing like a big like 1,000-book run of black market heroin. And I did it because I want. This is not to talk down to Ichabod or the God's Verse Chronicles, certainly not Obsidian Spindle, but like I think my best books are on our app, and I think that I want the best things, the things that like are unique to me, to be the things that people get on our app is kind of like Patreon. So like, you know, you pay a monthly fee and you get access to everything. And like, it's a very cool app. And I want people, and the people that buy it are probably going to be my biggest fans. And I want them to get something cool that they cannot get. And I'm willing to sacrifice like sales in the short term to get that in the long term and be able to say this book is available on our app. And the more times I can say, and the Dark Place is only available on our app. Like Worst Thing in the Universe is only available on our app. These are my wife's favorite books besides Obsidian Spindle. Black Market Heroin is only available on our app. Hopefully then people will finally download the app and like see how cool it is.
Yeah.
Also, like, young kids tend to like reading on their phones too. So I'm hoping that, I'm making a gamble. Like I don't have to have the app, right? Like I don't have to have it. I don't need it. I don't need, like next year I can say I was wrong. I'm going to put it on my table in 2023. But like, it is my hope that I don't have to go back to doing shows as much as I did before. So like, I am not thinking of what would look cool on my table. I'm thinking what would get somebody to spend $20, $25 a year on an app and buy our stuff. Because I'm trying to get out of the show. Not that I don't love shows. Like, I mean, shows are very taxing. And the way that I do shows is very taxing. But like the thing is, 30 to 40% of my income comes from shows. And like, I can never have it happen again where like 30 or 40% of my income dies, like out of my control, like at this pandemic. So like, I had to do a bunch more Kickstarters, and I had to like do apps and other things. So I definitely agree with you that like, it's the kind of book that I think would do really well at shows, but I'm trying to balance like Cthulhu is hard to spell being out in the world. And then someone saying, I love Cthulhu or Ichabod. How can I learn more? Going to my website and then joining like the app because it has so much other cool stuff on it. I don't know, like it's not worked yet. It's not worked yet. We've only got like 6 users on our app, but like, I'm hoping that like it will work in the long-term future when we do our Kickstarter in November for the app or like something. But yeah,
it's a smart post-COVID move. It really it's one of those moves where you're like, hey, and I get the logic behind it. Like I really do. As much as I think it would do great at the table, you're absolutely right. Hey man, is there a way for us to maybe not rely on tables so much because this can come back, you know, things can go awry. How do I make sure that this isn't, I'm not going to be in over my head, you know, just like restaurants suddenly started to have to sell, you know, make sure that delivery was a bigger thing. Get themselves on Grubhub, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, you're totally right. You're looking to that next evolution and going, cool. What does that look like? It might be a piece of this.
Well, and also will hopefully be not doing 11 books a year, because like I think that burns out both me and an audience. Like there's just so many books that I'd like to be doing 4, like including comics and novels and everything, not 11. Like this year I have 11 or 10 or 11. Next year I have like 11, and the following year I think I have 13. And like that's just too many. It's too many. It's too many books. It's too many. It's too many. It's too many. Like people can't keep up. So my hope is that by like getting to a place that I could have Obsidian Spindle out there in the world working, and Ichabod out there in the world working, and the Godsverse out there in the world working, and then that could draw back into sort of more obscure books, like more avant-garde books, like the kind of books that I like writing, the kind of stuff that doesn't burn up the charts. And that is really, people talk down often in the indie world about like hits, like these hit books that they're vapid and like, they don't have any soul, or like, the conversations that people have.
Oh yeah.
They're having them with you too. But the thing that those hits do is they let you make weird books. Like they let you, the bigger your hits are, the weirder your books can be that they support. And so like Cthulhu supported making Ichabod, and the Godsverse supported making Obsidian Spindle. And like, while those books are still in the weird genre, like having those hits out there doing the work allows you to make more books that are odder, that like may not be guaranteed hits. And so I think every creator who's still listening, should seriously think about what their signature series book is going to be, the book that will be doing work for them after they die. Because it's not all of them. It's not all of your books. Like all of, I talk to so many creators and they have like 3 issues of this and 2 issues of this and 2 issues of that. And like, it's great, but like, what is the one that people say that like breaks through the noise? And that's going to be the thing that like you do 16 issues of, or like you write 11 books of, or that like people talk about when they introduce new people to your work. And, as a person who is at a point in their career that they can look back at this, I can say that like Bob Sally was right. Bob Sally did it right. Like he built salvagers for years, and he used that to break off and make ogres and make broken gargoyles and build these other things. But people still talk about salvagers. When I think of Bob Sally, I think of salvagers today, and he hasn't written a salvagers book in what, years?
Yeah, other people want. I mean, he has that little the comic strip thing that came out recently.
But that was the thing that he did years ago, also. Because I told him, I was I own this. I'm not going to buy this thing. I literally own it. It's on my bookshelf. Like, maybe there's new strips, but like it is the book that like you made already with the same cover. So
Bob.
But like you still think of and like people do reprints of stuff. Like do it. Yeah. If you can get money on Kickstarter and launching a book again, like go for it. But you really have to and you don't have to. It doesn't have to be your first book, but like it has to be the thing that's like that leads to the next thing. It has to be like the Godsverse Chronicles, Cthulhu. Like what is the thing that people talk about? Because they're gonna say Chuck is an awesome creator. And they're gonna be like, what did he do? And they're gonna be like, what do they say? Because whatever and what do you want them to say? Because they might say some book that like you don't like. Yeah. You're like, or like it's not your best work, or that you did 10 years ago. So like you really need to have a hard think about like what is the thing that someone is what is the thing you want to come out of their mouth? And then where do you want them to? Where do you want to send them?
My dog is so excited because my wife is home.
Oh.
Mommy is home. Yeah, right. No, but that's so true. And it's because I've been having that conversation with myself. And I honestly feel I love what I've done. I love what I'm doing. I don't think I've quite found it yet. Whatever that thing is, and I have other ideas, other things that are coming, but I'm not sure I've quite made that thing yet. Whatever it is.
And that's okay. Like, that's okay. Yeah. Also, like, it's okay to not have it, but like, you will
know that you don't have it. Yeah.
But like in your world, like in your career, you need to think about like, what is the thing that you're going to be known for? Like, what is your X-Men #1, the Jim Lee X-Men #1, that like people think about? Like, what is the run that people are going to look back at and say, like, this is the thing. If you like this book, you're going to like Chuck's thing. And I, for years, did not have that. And I made my fans' life harder because they did not have a thing to tell other people. And they would email me and they ask, what should you say? Like, what should I tell people? Like, where should I send them? And I'd be like, I don't know, wherever. And they're like, no, what book? Give me a book. And honestly, Black Market Heroine was conceived to be that book. It is the book that I wanted people to say, and it is now. And the Magic Follow Behind her is the first book in the universe. Now, like, it's going to be the first book of the universe, which starts with Black Market Heroine, because I wanted people to be able to easily say, like, this is the one. This is the book that, like, if you like this, continue on. So now I have several of these series that are like this signature series kind of things that people talk about, but you've got to make it easy for them. Like, and it's got to be easy for them to consume that book. And it probably should be a book that is not your hardest book that's not your hardest, most complex book. It should be something that is easy to get them into the world, that doesn't scare them away. And they say, I like this. And they say, okay, you like this, try this thing. And you're like you kind of want to create this kind of story of what they should make and what they should read, that kind of weaves them from like your easiest book to your most complicated book.
That's really good. I wanted to make sure my mic was on. I've been turning it off and on because the bloody dogs. I love that, because now you've already got me going. Like, okay, cool. Like, I'm already thinking about like Essence House. What can I do with that? We're finishing up season 3, working on season 4. What would that look like in other formats and other things happening? So cool. That's a really big help. That's something I hadn't quite thought of it like that. But yeah, absolutely. So as we're winding down, because I promised an hour and we're at an hour and a half. I don't want to take your whole life. I know you've got a lovely wife and everything going on and all sorts of other work happening. Why don't you tell us, where we can find you, all that sort of amazing stuff, where they can find the app, everything.
Sure. So if you put my little Chiron up here again, there's a link, russellnohelty.com/BMH, or really just russellnohelty.com will redirect you to the Kickstarter. And the Kickstarter for Black Market Heroine is the thing that I am promoting right now. I also have a Twitter and I have a Facebook, but it's 96 pages drawn by my good friend Camry Lapka. It is about a criminal who accidentally saves the Antichrist and has to keep her alive into morning so that she doesn't have her blood used by a demonic cult to open a portal to hell and start the apocalypse. It is black and white. If you like Katrina, there's a little tribute print to Katrina in the beginning. But there's demons, and there's scorned lovers, and there's just the most adorable demon in the world. And I'm not going to show you more. There's aliens and double crosses, and one of my favorite things is the grumpy one likes the happy one. If you know anime, like this is that like taken to its extreme. Like if you like Katrina, she proofed it. If you like Joel Rodriguez, he lettered it. And
worked with both of them a lot. They're both great people.
They're great. He actually he did it all in like a week right before the campaign started. So I could not be happier with this book. I think if you like my old work, I think that it's closer to Pixie Dust than people seem to think it is. There's still an animated art style. I think the line work is a little more jagged in Pixie Dust, but I think there's a lot of crossover. I think if you like Pixie Dust, if you like Katrina, this is another entry in the Godsverse. We also have the entire Godsverse available digitally and through the add-on menu as far as the novels go, and the entire Godsverse, the hardcover collection for the other two books and the softcover for this book. I may be putting a hardcover edition for this in the last couple of days of the campaign. We're going to see how that goes, but it's just such a fun book. I love it so much. And we also have Ichabod to buy during the campaign. We have the Obsidian Spindle Saga to buy during the campaign. We have Cthulhu to buy during the campaign and all of our anthologies. You can find me also on Twitter and Facebook. But I am begging you to please give Black Market Heroine a chance. I think you are going to love it. I know it is black and white. I know for some reason there is a stigma against black and white books, despite the fact that Scott Pilgrim got a lot of us into doing comics, and it was black and white. If you like Scott Pilgrim, there's a lot of that influence in here too, but not like the video game influences and stuff. I absolutely love this book. You can find the first 5 pages on the Kickstarter. You can download the first 10 pages through a link at the top, or you can just trust me that I have good taste. I do not have a lot of things, but what I do have is exceptionally good taste when it comes to comics and books. And I am telling you, this book is great. I know I'm the one making it, and so I am biased, but I also have very good taste.
You know what? Having read a bunch of your stuff, I can agree. I think you do have excellent taste. Steph Wilson says, hour and a half. Chuck spoke 3 times. You're welcome. You're very, very welcome. And actually, this was really big. Drawn Talk came on. He said, this has been a great show. I've been listening while drawing. Russell is the worst to be near at cons. He's so loud, makes you realize you need to step up your game. That's exactly the kind of person I think we all need near us, because that motivation is huge. He brought these USBs, and they were so popular, and I was so jealous. Those are cute as fuck, by the way.
Yeah, they're these little USB drives that are in the shape of bees. They're great.
Dude, I thought when you show those off, I was like, fuck, that's brilliant.
Now I use these drop cards, so you can all steal this one now. This is a lot easier to take. There's this thing called Drop Card. It's at dropcards.com. You can load ebooks, music, Essence House on these little on these little cards. They cost about $1 a piece, and they have a little access code on the back that you can sell them, and they can access them just like they were buying like a DLC at a store. So dropcards.com. It's the new thing. Well, it's not my new thing. I've been doing it for 3 years, but the USBs, I stopped doing them because people would not buy them after a while because they were scared that there would be malware on them, and a lot of computers no longer have USB drives. So I now moved to the drop cards.
Yeah, that just sounds so smart. I think it's a really great way of doing it, because I'm sure the overhead on the USBs is probably a little more.
They're like $3 or $4. Well, and the USBs, you had to put everything on it. You could get like 5 or 6 different of these ones and have different stuff for the same cost as the USB. But you can put a chunk of like 20 of them on. The best thing that I did was I got these and I put like a sampler on it. So as you're meeting editors at shows, you put your business card on the front, and you do a drop card on the back that has a sampler of all your books on it, and it becomes your business card.
Oh, that's bloody brilliant. I love that. That's really great. Wow. Okay, dude, we've gotten so much information. Guys, if you got nothing out of this, you either weren't listening or you're way fucking ahead of anything we're doing. But thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you being here, Russell. Next week, guys, I'm going to have Kyron Silva here. Well, we've worked together. Absolutely fantastic guy. You're going to be able to sit down, talk to him, writer, artist, publisher. We're going to keep bringing absolutely amazing people. Again, Russell, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here.
No problem. And also, you can find the app on iOS and Android by typing in Beehive, or you can go to app.wannabepress.com.
That's awesome. That's just fantastic. Guys, go check it out. I got to read Black Market Heroin. I got halfway through it, and then I was like, fuck, I gotta do a show. But I am probably going to finish this show and then finish that book, because I really did have a great time. And you guys know me, I do love black and white books. And because not only do I read them, I make them. And I don't think you need color to make really good fucking books. So check this out, or else you're letting something really good slip by. Thank you so much, everyone. My name's Chuck. I give a fuck. Take care of yourselves.